only works if we walk in love, guys.
Protesters in Spokane gathered peacefully once again on Sunday, but this time they're demanding the city defund the Spokane police. We take a closer look at their demands just ahead. And protesters continue to occupy a small area of Seattle. We are looking to the west side of the state as the Capitol Hill occupied protest continues making headlines nationwide. This morning, we take a closer look at what defunding police actually means, along with a number of other terms you've heard as the national and local protests continue. Will getting laid off or furloughed hurt your chances of getting a home loan? Today, we verify.
Showery weather still on the way for your Monday. We've got rain today, colder temperatures. We'll be talking, though, about warmer temperatures and clear skies that will be here by the end of the week.
Up with KREM starts right now with Jen York, Joshua Robinson, Evan Narani, and Dana Marie McNichol.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning. I'm Joshua Robinson, joined by Evan Narani and Dana Marie McNichol this morning. Jen York has the day off. Of course, we want to check in first of all this morning with another look outside, especially after the weekend weather. Evan was kind of all over the place following the trend of the last week. So the question is, what can they expect today?
Very good question. It looks like wet weather is not going anywhere around the Northwest as we start off our work week. We're definitely going to still be picking up on showers today into the rest of the day and likely even into your Tuesday and Wednesday. It's not until about, I'd say, after Wednesday where we kind of flip the switch and start to see some changes on the way. So for starters, cloud cover is all we've got to start off the morning in Spokane, but showers are really building. So if you're in central Washington, you've probably already seen those showers start up. And if you're in Spokane or North Idaho, you're going to see them. Just give them a couple hours. I'd say around 7 o'clock is when we see them arrive in eastern Washington in the Spokane area, and then in North Idaho a couple hours after that, closer to 9 a.m. Now, hour by hour, we're not going to see those temperatures warm up. That's thanks to the thickness of those clouds. We'll see a little bit of a breeze out there, south to southwesterly winds, but otherwise the real story is how cold it's going to be. Average for this time of year would be near mid-70s, but instead will be about mid-50s, you can expect. Future Tracker does show that the next 48 hours are filled with wet weather, scattered showers all across the Northwest. Kind of that larger view out through Monday and then into Tuesday shows the chance for showers, a chance for thunderstorms, especially as you move toward western Montana. Plenty of activity taking place over there. So coming up in just a bit, we'll talk about the relief that we have in sight. I know a lot of us have not been too thrilled about the wet weather, how it has lingered through what seems like the start of summer, but we'll talk about when the official start of summer comes and what weather to expect around then. Joshua?
Yeah, Evan, even I'm a wet weather guy, but I'm like, let's just get to the summer already.
I know, right? I think we're all yearning for it.
Absolutely. We'll check in with you in just a few minutes to get that better sense of timing for the rest of the week. Thank you, Evan. 6:02 this morning, and for the third week in a row, protesters gathered in downtown Spokane this weekend to protest, focus specifically on defunding the Spokane police. Many of the speakers involved in yesterday's protests also spoke about their own experiences as people of color in Spokane.
I don't think it's any secret that Spokane is a primarily white town, and a lot of the experiences I've had here have been colored by tinges of racism, whether intentional or unintentional. But especially the last 3 weeks at these Sunday protests, I've seen how willing people are to educate themselves, to learn about change, and to really try and implement that change.
Speakers over the weekend all agreed that truly implementing that change is going to take a little bit of time. Protesters in Spokane say that they are counting on their allies to show up and continue supporting them.
So in a crowd of what you're seeing right now is actually important because we need those people to amplify the voices of the unheard. We need those people to be our allies and step in when they see something wrong. And also we need them to be consistent in this effort. This is something that is not going to happen overnight.
Protesters also say they are prepared to continue marching into the weeks ahead. Kurt Robinson, the president of Spokane's branch of the NAACP, was part of the weekend protests, and he says the leaders in the black community are prepared to continue demonstrating until they see change.
Well, we're not done yet, so we're not going to be done until this is done. You know, we're not asking for it, we're demanding it. And that's what the real unified voice is here is we're tired of asking, we're tired of talking. I really agree with the term peaceful protest because we're not being peaceful about it. You know, the spirit that's coming up in humanity right now is demanding change here in America. It is past time and we're going to stay with it until it's done.
Robinson also added that he wants people to understand the message behind Black Lives Matter so that we all can move forward together. This morning, we are getting a clearer picture of what exactly protesters in Spokane say that they want to accomplish through these protests. Representatives with Occupy Spokane broke their demands down into 4 specifics. Number 1, to defund the police and instead focus on spending that focus on serving the needs of the community. Now, number 2, to demilitarize the police and prevent military equipment from being used on civilians. Number 3, to stop building prisons, which protesters say they have become breeding grounds for crime and violence. Number 4, to create a people's budget that would allow the people to take part in political and financial decision making. Now, defunding the police is a call for action heard across the country and here at home. And earlier this week, we asked last week, we spoke with Mayor Nadine Woodward on her thoughts surrounding the idea.
That is something that we're hearing in the community. We're not going to defund our police department. I know other cities and other city councils are making votes in that area. And, you know, I think that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction that's not very well thought out. We have to have a police department that provides a safe community. But we can look at ways that we can expand programs within our police department that provide great community services.
And you can watch our entire interview with Mayor Woodward right now on KREM.com, or you can check out the KREM 2 mobile app. We do want to let you also know about another protest we know of planned for June 29th. That's 2 weeks from today. That is when Spokane City Council is scheduled to vote on a contract with the Police Guild. Protesters are expected to call for City Hall to reject it. Opponents argue that the contract leaves the police watchdog, which is called ombudsman, too weak. The contract, if passed, would also entitle officers to years of back pay. Negotiations between the city and the Police Guild are not required to be public. However, representatives with City Council say they expect these discussions will be open for the public anyway. And if you'd like more information about these police reform protests throughout the Inland Northwest, you can text the word protest to 509-448-2000 and we'll send you plenty of information with the latest. Now, after yesterday's protest in Spokane focused on defunding police, we do want to take a closer this morning at the 3 terms that are at the center of our country's debates and protests, specifically the terms defund, disband, and abolish. First, I want to look at the term defunding, which is what the Black Lives Matter group is calling for all police departments around the country to take a part in. Defunding basically does not mean that it's going to dismantle a police group altogether, but you'd cut a police force's budget and then reallocate part of that money to programs that would improve the community. Some of those programs could be anything from family counseling to gang and domestic violence groups or community-led crisis response. These, of course, would be very specific changes based on the need of the local community. The second term is disbanding. Police would basically, what would happen is we would break a law enforcement group down altogether and then rebuild it. So obviously this is a much more extreme situation, but about 8 years ago across the country, we did see an example of how it could potentially be put into place. In 2012, the city of Camden, New Jersey reached record high homicide numbers, but over the next year, the entire Camden County Police Department was laid off before city and county leaders overhauled the training program to focus on community policing, and then they rehired 40% of their staff. So today, the department reports an 85% drop in excessive force complaints. And we're showing you this picture because this was taken just over 2 weeks ago, which shows the police chief marching in protest right next to those same protesters throughout his community in Camden. And Camden, of course, has now been brought up as one example today of how disbanding could work. Now, the final term we want to talk about this morning is abolishing, which is the most extreme when it comes to ways that we could potentially handle police forces. Remove law enforcement altogether and then use those funds for local community service groups. Not only is this the most extreme of the 3, but it's also very idealistic, because it's based on the idea that if a community is truly healthy, they shouldn't need a police force. Now, a majority of protesters say this idea is not realistic as a quick solution. It would take serious time to be able to make something like this happen. But protesters within smaller groups of Black Lives Matter say it should be a goal for the future to have a society that is so healthy that it does not need to be policed. Also this morning, in other news, the Pierce County Medical Examiner has released the autopsy report for Manuel Ellis, a black man who died while being restrained by Tacoma police officers in March. The medical examiner ruled Ellis's death a homicide, but Ellis also had a fatal amount of methamphetamine in his system. The report says that he died from a lack of oxygen from physical restraint, positioning, and the placement of a spit mask over his face. Governor Jay Inslee called for a new and independent investigation into Ellis's death. That call came after a Pierce County investigation discovered there was a sheriff's deputy on scene when Ellis was killed in Tacoma police custody. Now, whether you know of it as Chaz or CHOP, protests on Capitol Hill are still going strong in Seattle and gathering national headlines.
You got a mental health support, emotional support tent, like first aid, like Conversation Cafe. Conversation Cafe. Yeah. This is amazing.
Protesters are now sharing music, art, and food throughout the Autonomous Zone, which is set up right next to Seattle's boarded up East Precinct. Protesters say the Autonomous Zone actually lifts their spirits after seeing violent collisions between police and Black Lives Matter protests.
We each went to the protests at different points and kind of saw the intensity of it, and personally I felt like there might not be anything that came out of it, and today was just a way to give myself hope after a really hard 2 weeks.
The Seattle police chief says that since the Autonomous Zone was blocked off by protesters, 911 response times have tripled. Seattle police say that there are plans to get officers back into the precinct. However, there is no current timeline right now. Protesters do say that they want to see it turned into a community center. For more on the protests in Seattle, let's check in once again with our own Dana Marie McNichol this morning. Good morning, Dana Marie.
Good morning, Joshua. Seattle Police Free Zones was packed with people during yesterday's protest. Now the area is now home to vendors handing out that free food and products, as you saw there, music performances and protest displays of every nature. Yesterday, a person was even seen wearing a Donald Trump mask while volunteers beat him with a foam stick. Now, Trump did propose using National Guard troops to clear the protesters from this area. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan said it would be unconstitutional and illegal to use military forces. Trump took to Twitter yesterday saying, quote, and this is what it is right behind me, does anyone notice how little radical left takeover of Seattle is being discussed in the fake news media? This is very much on purpose because they know how badly this weakness and ineptitude play politically. The mayor and governor should be ashamed of themselves. This could be easily fixed. We was very vocal on Twitter over the weekend. Now, amid the protests and police reform proposals, other city leaders spoke out, including Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best. She does believe policing will never be the same as it was before. On the Face of the Nation interview yesterday, she described the current situation as a pivotal moment in history.
I think all the time about how we might improve policing and what we're experiencing in the field every day. I absolutely believe in accountability, but I think we've moved away from using the word reform. We were under a consent decree in the Seattle Police Department for almost a decade. We followed every rule and everything that was asked of us to do.
That was the Justice Department looking at whether...
During the interview, Best said that given what happened nationally and locally, her job as police chief will be changed forever. She did not discuss any specific action that will be taken going forward, except for the measures already taken in place.
Thank you very much, Dana Marie. Still to come here on Up with KREM. Rumors about unemployment have circulated online since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. People are asking, will getting laid off or furloughed hurt your chances of getting a home loan? We'll verify.
And take a look outside. We've got cloudy skies out here in Spokane, showers across central Washington. We'll talk about where the wet weather is headed next and when to expect some warmer temperatures in the forecast.
And the world is still reeling from the discovery of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan's remains. In our next half hour, we'll bring you the latest on the case and how the public is reacting. We're back with more Up with KREM in just a few minutes.